I mean, I really enjoy binge watching, but there's something so great, for our show in particular, I think, when you are watching and the show ends and you have to wait a week. And it's like, oh, I can't believe they did that to me. And I enjoy watching shows that way too, because I'm like, I just can't wait to see what happens next week. And you get excited about it. And it gives you a week to sort of spin conspiracies in your own head and think about it and talk to someone at work about it. And that is really fun. I mean, we do that. One of the first things we do in the morning usually is we will go and, kind of talk about what people did over the weekend or the night before, and we'll talk about a show that everyone's watching or that everyone's not watching. We have to be careful with spoilers. It's like, all right, leave the room. But we talk about shows because we're fans of television also, and you can't believe what they did on True Detective last night or whatever. So there's something fun about that process of watching things and then having to wait.
And then there's that whole deconstruction thing that you were talking about
right.
before, that gives people like us and people on Twitter or on
right.
blog on podcasts to really tune in and buzz for the show.
Exactly, and I love that. And that's something that I think you don't get as much with the 13 or however many episodes all at once, because you're watching them on. It's like, okay, that was great, and I had a great weekend watching that show, which is fantastic. But for us, we'd rather have you spread out the show and really watch it. And so I hope people are enjoying it both ways. But our goal this year is to hopefully get more people to watch as we go and make it more like appointment viewing, even if it's not the same night. Within a day or two.
So that being said, in season 2, are we going to see more suspenseful moments and cliffhangers?
Yeah, always more suspenseful. That's our goal. Is every act out and definitely every end of show to and then we've also broken up our season into kind of thirds. So we're like, okay, in the first 5 episodes, we're going to be doing this. In the second, kind of middle block, we're going to be going here, and then there'll be this big twist, and then someone lives, someone dies, someone new comes in, and then in the last, then we're building toward a big finale. So it's all about kind of, because we have commercials, because we are a show that needs to write to end of scenes and end of act outs, we take those very seriously.
Is this the new golden age of television?
I love that. Yeah, I think it's great. I'm watching more now than I have probably at any time. I think that some of the shows are fantastic. I love that there are so many places that you can sell a show to, and all these networks are out there trying to build their own brand. They all want to do quality shows, and I would say yes, in that there are so many shows that I love watching right now. And truly, I'm watching more television now than I ever did, which is hard when you're also working on a show because there's no time.
Right.
But still, it's like, how am I going to make the time to watch, something, and you just record it and watch it as soon as you can.
Is that helped by the fact that now instead, the trend seems to be instead of 22 or 24 episodes, you're 8, 10, 12, 13
It's much easier.
episodes.
It's much easier. It's not as lucrative for everybody involved, but it's much easier to do a contained group like that. You can do it. It's easier to do I've worked on longer, shows with a longer season before. Easier to do when you have like a case of the week type show. The serialized shows tend to pack up on themselves, or you get the complaint that, they're stalling, because it's hard to keep that suspense up for 22. You can do it. There's some very successful shows that have done it and will continue to, but I think the 22 really favors the standalone episodes, because then you can also, like on our end, when you have a good group of writers, good large group of writers, you can break into 2 groups, and you guys work on that show and you guys work on this show. And on a serialized show, there's just no way you can do that, because they don't know. You can come up with ideas, but they won't know what they can commit to until we commit to the stuff before.
Right, or you do something like they did on House with all the different writers, but David Shore read every script and made changes because it was procedural.
Right, and he kept the
serial.
Exactly, and so he kept the kind of serialized stuff running. But then writers could work on their own stuff independently and come to him and say, "Oh, there's this great disease, and there's this medical twist that happens." So yeah.
And there's also no longer the stigma that actors work on television or
I know.
actors work in movies.
Yeah,
So.
it's definitely loosening up some, and likewise with writers and directors. People are crossing over more than ever, and it never used to be that way, which I think is great. I really enjoy it, and especially now with certain limited series. If you can tell an actor, hey, we're going to reinvent the season completely in the second year, so we only need you for a year, so they can then go and commit to a couple months shooting like a movie, and then be off to whatever next project, as opposed to, I mean, the good and the bad of the series that run forever with the same cast is you have a job. And the bad news is, for a lot of actors, is you have a job, because you're now going to be playing that character for a long time. Yeah.
Or you get like Fargo, where you can get Martin Freeman and Billy Bob Thornton
right.
for a short run. And
for one episode, for one season, and then you're done, and now we're reinventing in some way. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, so we're doing a little bit of each.
Now I know season 2 hasn't even come to fruition yet, but do you have an indefinite amount of ideas in your head, or do you see this as this is going to be a finite series? You know what I mean? Like with a definite, at least with a definite closed chapter, and if you want to pick up after, say, 5 seasons, you could go this and this route. Do you have that in your head, or is it much more vague at this point?
It's a little more vague at that point, because we don't know how long. And this is a question we deal with all the time, which is there a shelf life, to a series? Should it run for 4 years or 5 or 10 years? Can you do that with a serialized show? Obviously, you want it to run as long as it can without feeling like, they jumped the shark, they went too far. So you always have in your head, let's, in our minds, try to run as long as we can, but you just don't know exactly what that means. And so what we're going to try to do is sort of open new chapters. It really is kind of like chapters of a book. We're going to open new chapters. We're going to try to close them as much as possible by the end of the season, and then hopefully we get another season to be able to open up to tell a new chapter, without getting to some kind of endpoint. And at some point we will, and hopefully we'll know it too, because the brutal thing is you get canceled before you know the ending is going to come.
Right.
So I've noticed there's a trend also with viruses.
Yes.
The strain,
Yep.
the last ship.
Yeah.
It's like viruses. How do you account for that?
I don't know. It's kind of in the zeitgeist right now, which is pretty great, and I love these kind of stories, and I'm just really happy we were first. So, because those are some really good shows, and I feel like we're doing, everyone's doing their version of it, and I think that's great, and I don't know why that's like a hot thing right now. Yeah, but I'm really glad that we're not like the third show that came out, just because stuff's going to start to feel similar, and everyone's got their different take on it, but I'm glad we got a season under our belt.
Everyone's got infomercials for the CDC these days.
That's right. Yeah, and there's a lot of CDC stuff happening. I mean, it's very topical, I think. That's a very scary thing out there, and so I think the challenge of it is just trying to come up with new ways to scare people, but also new ways to tie it into what is going on in the world with medicine, with disease. We're trying to open a new chapter of the show this year and deal with something that is very different from the kind of, not typical, but the contagious virus, just because we kind of did it last year and there's a lot of shows doing it. So we're going to do something a little bit different this year, but still it's within the CDC purview. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.